Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Julio Perez for Module 10, and we're here back at it again. I know I've already done the four required ones, but you know what? Every week, this material is just, it's part of what human management is all about. And passing an opportunity to post a video and comment on some of this stuff wouldn't do the course justice, to be honest. Uh, in any case, in this week's presentation, we talked about the differences of we talked about the discrimination stuff, the laws that Florida administrative agencies, for example, OSHA, for example, is a federal situation, and not a state per se. State have their own laws uh, and whatnot. But for this week's assignment, I wanted to take the time to say a story that happened to me many moons ago, back when I worked for the Bay Harbor Islands Police Department. Um, and I say this because sometimes inadvertently, uh, without you even knowing it, you can get caught up in a situation that if you would have taken some kind of action, you might have avoided that problem. What happened was many years ago, and I want to say this was back in 2001, 2002. I was working for Bay Harbor Islands. I was working the night shift. It was almost like 5 in the morning, and I was really tired. Anyone that works night shift know that at that time, you're either going to need Cuban coffee, the strong kind, Red Bull supercharged, or Mountain Dew. There's no other way around it. I'm at the office finishing up my burglary report that I had gotten, and the dispatcher, who I got along with, you know, pretty much is a nice lady. Every now and then likes to offer to do Cuban coffee. I had a senior officer at the time. He wasn't a sergeant or a supervisor, but whenever the sergeant was out, he was made the acting officer in charge, meaning that he had, for that particular day, the rank of a sergeant. He answered to anything and everything that would happen that night on scene. So, the dispatcher comes in at about 5:25, 5:30 in the morning. And she's like, "Hey, Julio, do you want some Cuban coffee?" And I'm typing away, and I said, "You know what? Yeah, I really would appreciate that because I'm dying." Well, this individual sat down in the chair, was a heavy-set guy, and said, and I'm going to demonstrate it for what he did. He sat down, leaned back, grabbed both of his hands, put it over his genitalia area or his groin area, grabbed it, and said, "I want mine with leche," in a very seductive manner. I didn't think much of it because I was out there, I was trying to do my report and get that out the way because I came 6:59 in the morning. I wanted to be out that door heading west. Dispatcher didn't say anything. She left. 10, 15 minutes later, she came back with the Cuban coffee. She gave me the Cuban coffee, but she didn't give him any. This individual says, "Well, where's my Cuban coffee?" She says, "You get it yourself." And that was the end of that. Finished my report, came 6:59, turned it in, saw the day shift people out the door. I don't think I made it to the Northwest 125th Avenue, Northwest 7th Street intersection when I got called back by the assistant chief of police and told to return to the station. I said, "Well, what the hell's going on? What happened?" He said, "You worked last night and there was a sexual harassment allegation uh, brought up, initiated, and you were a big witness to it." "Oh, what the hell happened?" "There was no sexual." "Oh my God, no." That's what I said. Turned around, went right back to the island, and I was put in a taped interview. I was sworn in because they can. In an administrative agency, depending on who you work for, whatnot, certain individuals are empowered to take oaths, and they can take a sworn tape statement. In this case, in my case, it was a sworn tape statement over what happened. I explained what happened. I said I didn't think anything of it. I mean, I didn't see him do it. I mean, I saw the action, but I didn't see a reaction. I just didn't think anything of it. I didn't. So the assistant chief said, "Julio, we like you and everything, all this good stuff, but shouldn't you have said something? Did it appear normal?" I said, "No." He said, "Would you have done it?" I said, "Absolutely not." And he said, "Could you have said something?" I said, in hindsight, probably I should have said something. I mean, I just didn't. You know what? I didn't. I went back to work without a problem. The individual got suspended and he was out for 3 months with pay while the investor concurred. They fired him. After 3 months, they fired this individual. It was wrong what he did. I was suspended for a day. The reason for my suspension was that I should have at least said something. And that was something that, now that I look back many years forward, I should have said it. But I didn't think of it because I was trying to get my burglary report out and I didn't see a reaction with the dispatcher. The dispatcher, unfortunately, and this is what ends up happening in situations like this, and some of you may be able to even corroborate some of this information. You know, we got along very good, and even after everything happened, we still talked and everything. I apologized to her for not saying anything, and she said, no, I didn't think you picked up on it. You were too busy with the report, but it really bothered me a lot. And the sad part of the story was that after that employee got fired, the dispatcher was fired 2 weeks after that. Quote, unquote, some alleged mistake she made that if you and I would have done it, nothing would have happened. But because it was her, they got her. She ended up losing her job. She never became a dispatcher again, which I found to be sad. She was a very good dispatcher. This employee that got fired, this is the kicker. He ended up going to work for the mall security right off of Collins. And subsequent to that, 5 months after the whole affair, was hired as a reserve police officer for North Bay Village. He stayed as a reserve, working off-duty details at $25, $30 a pop, whatever he could, when he wasn't doing his security job, for a year and a half. That's something that wouldn't have happened to any of us. And then he got hired by the Bal Harbor Islands Police Department. And right now, to this day, in 2017, after the whole incident with Tom Hunker occurred and whatnot, they brought a new chief and all that good stuff, that individual is still there. And I believe he's a sergeant. So who got served justice here? Was it the dispatcher who was being nice and offered Cuban coffee? That individual who was being, in my opinion, a nasty slob? Or him? He ended up getting hired in an agency where he's making now almost 60, 70, 80,000 a year. His career got saved, and he's the one that did what he did. It wasn't her. Well, look at the time. 8 minutes. I'm already past my time again. This is one of the worst experiences I've ever had. I made my mistake. I learned from it. Now I don't play around with that stuff. I mean, even if I hear the slightest talk of anything out of the ordinary, I walk out, and if I don't like it, I say something about it. Because that one little mistake could have cost me. It didn't cost me because I had no malicious intent. But that individual did. And the way he did it was wrong. And the fact that he was still allowed to have a law enforcement career, making a lot of money to this day and age, is completely wrong, while she ended up having to move out of state. Ladies and gentlemen, till the next module. Have a good one.